Oh no, don't get caught. Come on. We got this. We got this. Okay, let's get this a-going. I'd say how's it going, everybody, but I don't think anyone else is in the room right now. How goes it, everybody? Hey Josh, how's it going? How you doing? Is it about to be your weekend, or do you work weekends? For me, I find today is officially the start of my weekend. I guess you could call this a bit of work, which in a sense it is. But I'm lucky that don't know what I'm gonna do with my day tomorrow, but I am excited for it. Oh, we got some people in. What's up? Party time. Okay. Party time is to be envied, that's for sure. I just noticed as soon as I started streaming, I just hate the way my body betrays me sometimes. Every once in a while, molars in the back of my mouth, that's where all the molars are, get a little sharp and cut at my tongue, and I didn't notice until I started talking for this that, I think they're starting to cut up at my tongue a little bit, which is great for when I'm about to be talking for several hours. So that's how I'm doing. How are you folks doing? Yeah, you're right, it does suck. Also, folks, be sure to let me know. I'm sweating it out in a heat wave. What part of the country? Every part of the country my close friends in are, places that are oddly cold today. I mean, it's a big world. Where's the heat wave striking you? Oh, that would make sense as a place that gets a lot of heat. How are the levels on everything doing, folks? Is it too loud, too quiet? Excuse me. Oh, that was the other thing I was gonna do. I should really look into... That's good to hear. Awesome. I absolutely boned myself the other day. Or I should say, the segment I recorded almost 2 months ago, but I had some content. Sorry, trying to create a invite link for Discord, and it tried to send it to people I've met with on Hinge, which is the exact opposite of what I want to do. I recorded a segment on my thoughts on Don't Look Up, hoping to use it around Oscar season at the time that, the awards were happening. And I completely forgot that I had the computer audio set to like -30 for like I'm doing right now, just some background music, because as soon as I started reacting to clips of conservatives complaining about the movie, it was just like, it was just unusable audio. And as soon as I could turn up the audio, but the only way that you could hear what the people were saying was if it was so loud that you could hear every little like bump and knuckle crack, because I had to crank it like 25 decibels up. So I'm trying to be aware of audio levels. There was just a knock at my door. I think that might be a package. I'll be right back. Okay, folks, I am so hyped. Oh my god. So I'm gonna... Do I have something sharp? Oh, god damn it. I should have known that walking away everyone would leave. I hate my life. Anyways. Got a new phone case. My current phone case, if you look here, is all sorts of fucked up. So I got a replacement. Oh, watching the Sonic movie. Happy to hear, Uber, but thank you for tuning in. Even just for that moment to let us know what's up. Sonic 2, I'm assuming. I actually haven't heard anything about the movie. Hope it's good. Okay, folks. So as we tried to get Morbius tickets. I mean, you had to order Morbius tickets, honestly, pre-pandemic to even have a shot of getting in for its initial theatrical release. So I'm not surprised. Sorry you had to settle. It's funny, I actually was gonna say sorry you had to settle for Sonic before I even finished reading your message. You also used the word settle, so I guess great minds think alike. Okay, one last thing before we get going. Oh, wait, shoot, that is not what I wanted to do. Okay, go back. Please don't play an ad. Okay, thank God. Just to get an extra notification out there, I'm gonna post a, just gonna post on the community tab to say, hey, I'm live, come tune in. Hope we can get some more folks in the chat. Oh, frick, which one is it? I'm gonna guess it's the one that's slightly larger. Okay, so that's everyone. That's every place I can think to post. Okay, folks, so before we get going, I'm curious, what would you rather hear first? Would you rather hear me talk about the Starbucks union push, or would you rather we talk about how Democrats don't stand for anything? Totally up to you. Yeah, they do both kind of fit, no matter how you look at it. Oh, on a completely unrelated note, hope you folks go and check out, I haven't finished it yet, just because it is the longest video on their channel, and I want to make sure to get, I just haven't had the time to finish. But go check out Thought Slime's newest video on Gary V. What a fucking creep? That's not quite the... What a charlatan Gary V is. Great work. Like I said, haven't been able to finish it, and I'm not just hyping it up because I got on the eyeball zone again. I do like what I've seen so far. I was hoping to have gotten... I was hoping that by going live today I could catch some of the, some momentum from the eyeball zone bump on this here live stream. Oh, that's a comment I wanted to respond to. Yeah, it's slime. It's good-ish, for sure. Oh, Jesus Christ. Come on. Let's be reasonable. How long have we been live for 18 minutes? Okay, we'll get going. Gonna give myself a quick clap. Oh yeah, that's another question. I made sure to line up the audio sync before I went going. Is it suddenly out of whack? Let me know before I get too deep into the sauce. Okay, I'm gonna hope that it's good. Okay, gonna give it myself. Oh, decent. Okay, now that you said decent. Oh, here's a good way to check. Of course, the difficulty is if it is desynced, I'm not gonna know. It's gonna be hard to properly sync it without maybe just completely stopping the stream and starting over. Let me try this. Okay. And we're back. Seem good? Okay, perfect. I just hate the tooth in the back of my mouth. I need to move on to get to the content. Okay, I'm going to pause the music. Okay, now I'm gonna do what I should probably, every time I sit down to stream, I stop and realize I should probably plan out, like, I have the idea for segments, but I should probably have, like, a little bit of a script for, like, what I'm about to say. And every time, I forget to do that, and that's okay. See, now I'm trying to formulate in them, and I'm like, this is why I should do it before I press go live. I'm trying to formulate a phrase like, unions are like blank. They're not perfect, but if you don't have one, you're screwed. And I'm like, what is that? Kidneys? That's not a good comparison. Cars? See, these are the things I should think through before I press live. They're like onions. There's a lot of layers to discuss. Let's unpack. Let me do something really great for the advertiser friendliness of the YouTube video. Let me start by saying unions are like guns. That'll be great for monetization. Okay, I'm just going to get going into it. Looking at myself on camera, I get hyper aware of how I'm carrying myself. Anyways. Sorry. The other reason I need to remind myself before I press live that I'm not just recording here. I am live. It's silly. It just doesn't feel like it. I think if I had a Hassan tier busy chat and it was just going just rapid fire comment section, I think I would kind of realize, but anyways. Unions are an imperfect organization. Unions are like garlic powder. Powder? Ooh, okay. That's a good line. That's a good route to go down. Ooh, here's a fun one, and this is stealing a bit of a bit from H Bomber Guy. Unions are like a butter dish. You might not think it's necessary. You might think, oh, I'm better off without it, until you're leaving butter frozen in the fridge or out and about and it spills all over the place. And then you stop and think, gee, I should really get around to getting one of those fancy butter dishes, huh? That was my attempt at an intro, folks. Let me know what you thought. But anyways, unions, it should be said. But anyways, don't know if you've been paying attention to labor news. There's a huge unionization push in the US the last few months. Highlighted most recently, I just did a video about the Amazon labor union getting the first US union victory in an Amazon warehouse. And there are a lot of other strikes and union elections throughout all. And there are a lot of other strikes and union elections going on throughout the country. But today, I want to focus on one of the more weirdly successful union pushes in America. And that is the one we see in Starbucks stores. Now, I want to acknowledge before we get going, Now, I want to, say, now before we get into how hyped I am for the union push, I do want to point out, just because I feel it needs to be said whenever we talk about unions, they are a compromised organization. And I don't mean compromised, that might come off wrong. I don't mean that they're like compromised in a moral sense. What I mean is my ideal world is one with increased worker cooperative ownership. That is pretty damn close to, workers owning the means of their production, quite literally. And unions are a big, noteworthy step back from that, because it's this third-party sort of organization, really just to bargain with the proprietary owner. It is, and it brings a little bit of democracy in there, but it's not, crucially, the goal here. It only exists as something worth hyping up because it's the best we'll ever probably get in America. So even if it's not my ideal world, it's still cool to see. So let's get to it. Okay, I'm going to clap here again in case something's fucked up. Oh yeah, let's start with So the trend of Starbucks stores unionizing, pushing to unionize started last December in, I think, Ithaca. And let's read through this story to refresh up on the details of the matter, because you cannot pay me enough to scroll back on SBU's Twitter several months to find this info. So let's read. Okay, I'm going to scroll in so that we can avoid these ads. A little bit more. Perfect. On Thursday, workers at a Starbucks in Buffalo voted to form a union, making it the first of more than 8,000 corporate Starbucks locations in the U.S. to unionize. A second Buffalo location voted against unionizing. A third had a majority vote for the union, but due to a number of challenges, it at the time wasn't final. And we'll get to that in a minute, because this was, again, December. A lot more elections have happened. For the employees at the store, this means they'll begin to negotiate a contract for better wages, benefits, and working conditions. For everyone else, this could spur more unionization across the U.S. Hint, it did. Sometimes strikes and union organizing victories can be very contagious. Yeah, that's what we're hoping for. We're crossing our fingers that that's the case here. I really just pulled this up to see mm. So as of the end of 2021, just another part of this organized labor push, there were 243 strikes through November, which, while being a decent number, has been on a constant decline since the 70s. And we also have oh, perfect. There's a graphic for what I was about to say. Union membership is, I think, just about as low as it's ever been. It's slightly upticked from the lowest of the lows, which was 2019. But yeah, it is not doing great. And really, it's a shame we're talking about how big a difference a 10% margin does, but you know, that really does sway a lot of sectors, you know. However, at the same time, approval for unions is reaching its highest point. It seems that the series of Gallup polls from the 60s polled how in favor people are of unions, and its low point was, what is that? That's probably like 2009, which means there was probably some, there's probably some Tea Party Fox News shit. That made people hate like the AFL-CIO or some such. But now we're back up to, I need to fucking, now we're back up to 68%, which is pretty great. And that also says a lot, and we'll get into this with Starbucks. It says a lot about the people in the median that seem to be slowly getting convinced. Oh no, ads, go away. However, as we'll discuss with the Starbucks unions, there is those damn banker unions. That's an interesting way to describe maybe that's how you get people to hate Wall Street. Call them banker unions. That's how you get conservatives on your side. But it should be noted, there is a sharp disconnect between and it should be noted there is a disconnect between the approval rating of unionization and the actual rate of unionization. And that's because, as this article brings up, companies since the 70s have been getting into a lot of shadier-ish, like firing union organizers, holding meetings where they say, hey, unions are bad, you'll lose all your benefits. And in the last half of the last century, labor laws started to allow more of that to happen, or they would lower the penalties, or they would defang the organizations meant to enforce those penalties and laws. And then speaking of, and to tell us maybe a little bit more about how difficult it is, let's listen to the. Oh shit! It's the Mad Money guy. That probably means he's gonna be an asshole. Hate this fucker. Let's see what he has to say to the Starbucks union organizer. And I am going to turn up the volume this time. Please no ads.
I understand that I
go away. Just gonna let it play.
As let's say you get the union certified, you're an employee of the union, that it's also an employee of Starbucks. Can the union have leverage if it's just one Starbucks store?
I think that's a great question. I think this is the beginning. You know, a movement has to start somewhere, and it needed to start with one store. And I think, just like you said in your introduction, this is a new wave for the labor movement in Buffalo, for organized labor. Workers are standing up and demanding that they get the respect that they deserve for the profits that are earned off of our backs. And so I think what we need to do now is we need to have Starbucks acknowledge that this union exists. We need to get them to the bargaining table, hopefully sooner rather than later. And then we negotiate that contract. And it's that contract that is going to allow for other stores to want to follow in our footsteps. You know, we get a great contract, and, you know, what would be the loss of signing on?
So you believe that Starbucks may give workers at your Starbucks a better deal than the 200,000 other workers get at other Starbucks?
Well, I know that, you know, I would certainly never sign a union contract where I was getting less than I'm getting now. So yes, I would hope that they would. I mean, they're a progressive company. Starbucks has always claimed that they were a company that stood with their workers and stood with the community, and that they were you know, a prince among men, better than a lot of the companies in this country for what they offer for their workers. Their mission and values says that it's, you know, what they want to do is continue to challenge the status quo, and they can lead by example. I mean, they can set an example for other businesses in the service industry.
Why has this guy got spam on his table? This is such a chaotic, but like obnoxiously chaotically designed set. Sorry, let me rewind.
In this country for what they offer for their workers. Their mission and values says that it's, you know, what they want to do is continue to challenge the status quo, and they can lead by example. I mean, they can set an example for other businesses in the service industry and, you know, take some of the stigma and the fear out of unionizing and say, you know what, it would be nice to hear from our hourly workers. It would be nice to have a voice from them, because nobody knows how to run these stores better than the people who are on the floors every day.
Well, if you're not taken seriously, would you ever go on strike?
I think there are definitely options in the future. I mean, I hope that they would take us seriously. We're their brand, you know, we're their name, and they've not really led by example so far in terms of how they've fought this union from the moment we went public. I think that could potentially hurt them in the long run. Certainly publicly, public persona to Starbucks is very important. They're a globally recognized brand. So it would be in all of our best interests to get to that bargaining table as quickly as possible.
She brought up something interesting there, that kind of points to this interesting dynamic with Starbucks as far as unions are concerned, and I think it means that we ought to give a whole lot of credit to anyone and a whole lot of support to anyone out there unionizing Starbucks, because there's this weird dynamic where part of your bargaining power is lost by the fact that if you go on strike and you're in a city with, like, any mid-sized city these days has like a dozen Starbuckses, it's hard if only one of your shops is unionized to go on strike, because then all of a sudden people just go to the one. My family was in town the other day, so I was out by kind of, you know, the college-y section of town, and I noticed there was 2 Starbuckses on the end of a street with like a couple of hotels in between. So, you know, like that one Starbucks, if one of those two goes on strike, it's really difficult to have a whole lot of bargaining power, because then there's another one right there too. They're not even really being, I mean, they are being scab workers. There's another store right down the street to be scab workers. So that saps a little bit of bargaining power out of the union. But another way that it kind of increases their bargaining power is that there are a bunch of jobs on the same mid-tier as Starbucks for folks to find if something goes wrong. So it does create this kind of like, I've got nothing to lose dynamic, where it's like, yeah, you could fire all of us if you'd like, but the shop might shut down, and you know what? We'll find plenty okay jobs elsewhere in the city. You know, we can go work with our experience at a unionized Starbucks, or we can work at a Dutch Bros or some such. So it creates a little bit of a frustrating, complicated dynamic. Excuse me. But regardless of, and actually, has this contract been ratified? I'm curious. Okay, I'm going to go full screen to look it up real quick. Because that is a very important it's a super important part of this, is if they get recognized. Oh, okay. So while obviously these negotiations take a while, it seems as it currently stands, Starbucks has not recognized these unions yet, which is kind of garbage, but I don't know what else to expect. Because let's start to get to the fun, seedy underbelly of this story, and that is how Starbucks has responded. Because in the 4 months since the first Starbucks in Ithaca unionized, there have been, I think in total as of today, 16 stores that have voted to unionize. Oh, go away. Go away, banner ad. I hate you. On Thursday and Friday, workers at 6 stores in upstate New York voted to unionize, according to the NLRB, bringing the total number of company-owned stores where they've backed a union to 16. It also sounds like there's one in Kansas who, at time of recording, has votes being tallied, but the outcome is unsure, so we'll see in the coming hours how that goes. And it's important to note for scale, as big a wave as there is here, like I looked on my city's, there's a map on More Perfect Union, I'll link down below, where you can check the Starbuckses in your location to see which ones are unionizing. I think like almost everyone in my city has filed for a union. But for scale, it seems only about 200 of the 9,000 stores have done so yet. Those are rookie numbers. We really need to bump those up. Ooh, here's a good sign. Union elections filings were up more than 50% during the last 6 months than the 6 months prior to that, which is super cool. Love to see that. And then, of course, you run into And then, of course, you run into the issue with austerity and budget cuts, where the organizations meant to check this sort of thing are struggling to staff people to make sure people aren't committing crimes. Love that. Of course, Starbucks does the typical union. Of course, Starbucks gets into the typical anti-union stuff of having meetings to persuade them to not unionize, conversations where managers bully individual people and employees and that sort of thing. They've also started to... There were also some high-profile cases, and, you know, if I were making this video in December, I would have pulled up the videos that were streaming across my timeline. Senior officials coming in from out of town to talk to people. Oh, wait, what clip was that? That was, what is... Something on Means TV. Oh, damn it. See, this is the one moment. This is one of the moments where I am, in fact, frustrated with corporatized YouTube BS, where I'm like, I am looking up the channel Means TV, and I'm just getting normal stuff. Let me see if this gets me what I want. Can I search their videos? Nope, none of this helps. This all does me nothing. Okay, I'm gonna go... There was a very specific clip of a Starbucks worker talking about getting intimidated by corporate that I was looking for, but might not be important. At Means, what what is it? Underscore TV Starbucks. Yeah, this guy had an interview with one of the union people that just felt important to bring up, but I can't seem to find it here. Oh, here we go. Here's a good... Now, how does full screen... Oh, perfect. So here's a clip from Means TV of a worker attempting to unionize, describing how they were getting intimidated at work by their managers.
So I got hired in August, and multiple weeks went by, no training. Before I even poured one cup of coffee, I had already been attending these anti-union meetings and listening sessions that they were asking me to go to.
It's supposed to be them listening to us about, things in our store that we want to be improved, but it's usually the first 25, 30 minutes is them talking at us. And generally, at this point, it's all anti-union. It started off the first 2 meetings were kind of, we're here to help you, you raised your hand, we're so excited to be here and fix things. And then they've gotten progressively, they've broken us into smaller groups. They've scheduled these so that the most vocal of us are in one group and the quieter people are in other groups.
I was about to say that's the exact devious type of shit I would expect from Howard Schultz and all these people.
So I mean, it's blatantly obvious to us, and I'm sure that they know that. I'm just not so sure that they care.
I started thinking it was kind of strange because for a store that was so short-staffed and had so many call-outs and really needed new people to work, I had been hired multiple weeks before that, and I would have been ready to train the very next day, and I was basically just sitting around waiting to get trained, and they could have reached out to me, and nobody did. So I thought it was just kind of suspicious, and I started to kind of wonder, like, okay, is it because they saw me talking to union supporters, or is it because, like, it could have been a lot, like, who knows?
So yeah, that's the type of... And it's really devious, of course. That's the type of finagling they try to get around legally, where it's this open-ended session to discuss problems in the stores and try to be like, oh, we're here to help. And then they just sit you down and say, unions will kill your family. It's an exaggeration, of course, but that seems to be the... Oh no, I moved the screen a little bit, or something about it going full screen moved the image a little bit. And you could tell in the ways they talk about divvying people up based on, like, separating the vocal union supporters from the not. This is very strategic. Okay, here's one. This isn't exactly what I was looking for. But let's hear from these folks. They deserve to be listened to.
You don't have to have a terrible workplace to form a union. I think the reason we're forming a union at Starbucks is, exactly the opposite case. I think that's kind of baffled management here. They've constantly tried to twist the narrative into, well, everything's so good, we have all these benefits, why are you doing this? Has been kind of their messaging or their response to our organizing. And we're saying, yeah, the benefits are great, like we do like the benefits we do have, but we want to improve them, we want to make them better. And also we want a democratic say in our workplace. Why should 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, of our lives, not be democratic? Should lack, like, us having any representation or say or protections. I mean, like, that's, that's what they fundamentally don't understand or don't want to understand, is that, this movement isn't about, just terrible workplaces and, conditions, you'd maybe find like Amazon distribution centers. It's about, like, the conditions all of us face at work. All our wages have stagnated since, the 70s. We're making less and less every year as wages don't go up because of inflation. And if we don't have a democratic say in our workplace, we're only going to be making less. It's a matter of really, like, life and death, and, actually having a future for, the children we do have and the workers that come after us. Because if we don't take a stand and unionize, none of this is going to get better. It's only going to get worse. And, coming out of COVID, I think we've seen how bad it can get and how bad it could potentially be if nothing changes. So.
That brings up a really interesting point to discuss about what it means for Starbucks to be one of the centers of high unionization. Because, like you said, Amazon is more known for being, put the graphic up on screen editing, Piley, of the rate of injuries relative to others in the industry at Amazon. But Starbucks has good benefits, decent wages. I think there's even some extent to which stores help people with transition surgery, shit like that. So it almost sounds like the union busters are going to their literal playbook and they say but we have a good environment, and they say, oh well, it's not about that. We want a say in our workplace, and then they get stun locked and they go, we give you benefits. Why aren't you grateful, you peon? Which is an interesting dynamic. So as we've seen through, speaking of the crap, speaking of the unsettling things, oh, go away, tweet, go away, ads. Let me see if there's any updates. Speaking of the shitty ways that union busting has been existing at Starbucks shops, the labor board, which I'm shocked to hear that the labor board is doing their job here, they determined that Starbucks illegally fired the Memphis 7, which was just a group of 7 activists at a Memphis store, because they were union members. Which is crazy. Again, this is the type of thing that just happens, I haven't been super tapped into this stuff for years, but this is commonplace so often. I'm shocked that they're actually being held accountable here. And held accountable, it doesn't seem super. Let's see what illegal means in this case. Oh no, it's the fucking Bloomberg. Oh no, that's just an ad. Go away, banner ads. Jesus Christ. After addressing complaints that his shops have been illegally firing people, Chief Executive Officer Howard Schultz made the comment, "We can't ignore what's happening in the country as it relates to the companies throughout the country being assaulted by the threat of unionization, which isn't so much a lie, so much as it is just admitting that unions are a threat to his desired dictatorial rule of the workplace. But it says a lot that people like him will use words like assault to describe, hey, these people have a say. You know, we can't just tell them. We can't just dictate the terms for them. Oh, did they also reiterate the anti-union meaning? That would be great. I would feel free to send me a link to something if you. I haven't found that scrolling through anything I've seen so far. But if they have reiterated that that's illegal, I am so hyped to see it. So here's a great pair of sentences here. You have the fact that a 2019 study of claims filed with the NLRB found that workers were allegedly fired illegally between 20 and 30% of elections. However, the labor board lacks the authority to impose punitive damages for violations of the law, which is where you get stuff in... which is where you get this line in the story that they'll issue a complaint unless the company settles, which triggered my brain immediately. I was like, what is issuing a complaint? Oh yeah, that's probably all they have the power to do, is to just write a letter saying, you've done the bad thing. So even though it is a shockingly, at least allegedly, common occurrence, fucking nothing this labor board can do about it. But don't worry, folks. While he may seem heartless, saying that the working class trying to have a say in the process and have their desires heard through a democratic organization, the fact that he calls them assaulting may come off as callous. But don't worry, he is tapped in to the common person's desires. So let's see his plan here for how he's gonna win people back over.
If you look at the companies, the brands, the celebrities, the influencers that are trying to create a digital NFT platform and business, I can't find one of them that has the treasure trove of assets that Starbucks has, from collectibles to the entire heritage of the company. So,
who among us can forget the hit cartoon starring Starbucks Mermaid Lady? I was developmental for my childhood, so I would snatch up a Starbucks NFT in a heartbeat.
here's the secret. Sometime before the end of this calendar year, we are going to be in the NFT business.
Please clap. No one gives a shit about NFTs anymore, Howard.
Let me close this so you can see that graphic. I'm going to close chat for a second. Oh my God, I hadn't seen that. Oh, holy shit, that's drastic. Oh my God. Oh, I guess that's just Googling NFTs. That's not necessarily NFT sales, but let's look that up real quick. Oop. Don't want to dox anything when I open a new tab. Let's see if this gives me what I'm looking for. Oh, I should have had the screen. Oh my God. Yeah, real. Clearly, Howard, the time to get into the NFT games was April of 2022. You're really on the cutting edge there. God, what a dumbass. But yeah, I think to me it says a lot about sort of the desperation from corporate management at Starbucks that their response hours after, various elections were going on. Go away, ads. The response hours after some elections were held was to announce that they're dropping NFTs. Oh my God, he was coached. He was a little sensitive because he was watching his words because he'd been coached a little bit before he had the line about assaulting coming. That is so funny. That tells you his unfiltered thoughts would be a lot more egregious. And yeah, all this was hours after they fired somebody from a Phoenix store. I guess, I don't know that Howard Schultz called that in, but that somebody from a Phoenix store was fired for her involvement in a union. You also have the fact that they're out here coping by the absolute L's they're taking by looking for communications managers to defend their brand reputation, which, as this Twitter account put it, you could just stop union busting. That'd be a quick way to get that. I'm trying to find there was... Also, something that is... So yeah, something to wrap up here that I find really interesting about the unionizing dynamic with Starbucks workplaces is the fact that the number of people is so small, you'd think that would favor management, that they could really focus in on splitting people up, on really, personalize their arguments, and that they'd have a bit more leverage over like the individuals. But it seems to be that such a tight-knit environment is, at least in these cases, really convenient for building solidarity. Like the fact that, Amazon's union was recently, like Amazon's union vote was about 55% in favor of, 45% against. So you'd expect these margins to be like 11-9, but it's in each case for the rest of these unionizing in Ithaca. It's all 19, it's all one absolute bozo in the back is voting against it, and everyone else is like, yeah, this sounds great, sign me up. So it almost feels like, because of the low number of staff involved, it makes it really easy for sort of grassroots organizing, because you don't need huge campaigns to reach, like, again, the Amazon union had like 6,000 eligible members they had to try to win over. But there's 20 people here. That's it. That's smaller than most classes I had in high school. Completely unrelated, everyone. But you know what I love? I love the fact that we just keep extending the extension of people not needing to pay back their federal student loans instead of just canceling it all. I love this constant back and forth of worrying that I'm eventually going to have to pay a bunch of money one random month. That's a really great feeling to have. But that gets us conveniently into our next topic in a second here, once I wrap this one up. So anyways, this has probably been a pretty meandering video so far, so let me go back to full screen and let's wrap up here. Despite all of the paths to success, despite all of the barriers, management that's hostile, corporate, HR people coming in to subtly harass unionizing people, unionizing workers getting fired, or I've read stories here, maybe I'll try to pull one up or link it below, of people like suddenly getting put on like closing shifts when they always opened, or they'd get asked to close and open back to back, and then when they were late a couple of times because of that bizarre scheduling thing, all of a sudden, then they're fired. And it's not because they're unionizing, it's just suddenly their schedules changed in a way that made it likely they would be late, and then we fired them when they were late. All that sort of stuff is going against these unions, and yet there's a pretty big wave going forward. I wouldn't be surprised if the number 16 was a little higher if it weren't for the understaffing of the labor boards that need to count these union votes. But at the same time, there's like 20 votes, so I wish they would go faster. It's not that I can count 20 votes in 5 minutes, okay? Put me in, coach, I can play. But anyways, the movement, but regardless of the struggles, it is so cool to see that folks, in a fairly comfy job, or at least a better job than some others in the shitty market. It's nice to see that this is a place where, just for the genuine love of worker democracy and having a say in things, it's nice to see that that is the center of labor organizing at the moment, or that is a avenue through which we see this big push in America. Again, unions are not the end-all be-all of of workers having a say in their workplace, but it is nice to see, regardless of my gripes with unions as a structure, every single time the vote comes through, you can see how happy it makes everybody. And what's better than a thing that makes a bunch of 20-somethings jump and go, woohoo! I personally can't think of a better state of being. But anyways, thanks for watching, everybody. Now, let's turn it on over to the pre-recorded outro. Okay, that was nice. That was good. How we doing, folks? How we feeling? Oh, my back. Oh, there goes my back. Ow. Okay. You know, I had thought before we got going, I wish I got a little bit more of a plan, but that was okay. That was okay. I'm constantly torn between wanting to have everything planned out, super duper detailed, and just kind of going with the flow. And that was a fun example of going with the flow, like reading through the results, opening links, and that sort of. Hope it was enjoyable to watch. Let me know if it was down below. Okay, I'm out of water. I'm going to go get water, and then I will very quickly be back. Ooh, let me do this. To spark. Oh, god damn it. That's not what I wanted. Okay. Okay, this is going to take a second. Never mind. Actually, that'll be fine. I just need to get me out of the way. Let's see if that works. And this is why I have my second backup screen on my phone. Perfect. Oh, come on, Photoshop. Don't you crash on me. Anyways, this is the framework for the next segment here, folks. I'll be back once I fill my crafty girl mug up with some water. Howdy, folks. I'm back and better than ever, believe it or not. Oh, Lord. How's everyone doing, folks? Unless my numbers are just absolutely brazy. Thanks for tuning in, folks. Because I don't pay a whole lot of attention to the number. There were times where I was like, oh, nobody's watching but me. But nice to have you folks around. Hope you're enjoying the content. let's get back to this. And then go back to that, and then drag you down here. But for those folks that are in the chat, for this next segment specifically, I encourage you to offer up suggestions. That's not the word. Basically, what I'm about to do is I'm about to go over sort of like what are the general platforms in either of these parties, and just start to discuss that there's a lot of negative affirmatives to Republicans, but a lot of wishy-washy-ish with Democrats. So there are times where I'll like ask questions. Feel free to let me know what your thoughts are, or like feel free to link articles, or like a big question that I have is like, are Democrats even fighting for trans people, or are they just not fighting against trans people? So that's the sort of direction of this next segment. So feel free to chat along. Completely unrelated. I literally cannot wait to put a new case on my phone. This thing is so... Oh my God. I'm glad I got a new case before my phone just absolutely broke, but this is getting embarrassing. I am going to miss, though, because these little pop rockets, pop drop and lockets, they don't come off easily. They don't transfer between phones well. So I am going to lose that. Yeah, that's what's so funny, and this will come up in the video, Josh. Republican governors have done more to stop these trans bills than, I think, Democrats at a federal level. Because states like Utah and Alabama, it has been the governors who have vetoed the bills and have either stalled them from there or made, or they just got, like, passed over the veto anyways. But like that is more of an active, like you've seen more from these sort of, I don't even want to call them moderates. I doubt the Republican governor of Utah or Alabama is a moderate, but they just have this moment of like, the fuck is this? But they are doing meaningfully more than Democrats on this shit. But now I'm getting ahead of myself, and I'm starting to spoil some of the fun of this segment. So let me just get into it. Yeah, it's very broken clock stuff. Hey folks, welcome back. So in a few videos recently, I've called liberals some version of feckless or toothless or useless, some sort of less, in that family. And I felt the need to clarify what I meant for a second. Because it's not that like the vague ideas they sometimes have because it's not that the vague ideas they have minor vocal support for are awful in every sense of the word. It's more so that their idea for activism seems to be kneeling in a courtroom, and their idea of appealing to different voters seems to be playing Despacito on a phone or telling people to Pokemon Go to the polls. So today I really just wanted, as we approach the midterms, and we're in the last few weeks here before every CNN article is going to be about midterms, and 538 is going to be all on like, oh, here's the projections for who's going to win here, where are the polls at, you know. We're almost free of that cycle. So before we get into it, not that any Democrat is going to watch this, but I just wanted to take a moment to really go over the different platforms between each party and really see if there's much of anything, if there's really any affirmative reason to vote blue. Because that's an honest question I want to ask here. Why, at this point, should anybody even vote blue? And that's not to say that voting red is suddenly a good thing. It is to criticize the fact that there's a whole lot of nothing over here. Let me know how you feel about war crimes in 3 emojis or less. That's the official... That's actually how Democrats do background checks for pollsters or canvas people. Is they ask them to describe how they feel about war crimes in emojis. And they hire them based on how excited about war crimes they are. So, let's start. Well, okay. Are you going to let me start? Oh, God. Is this shit about to... Okay. I might... Oh, no. Don't you do this to me. Don't you dare. Don't you dare add a new thing. Fucking... Oh, why is this going so slow? This is going to delay the whole segment just trying to get Photoshop to work. Okay, I'm going to close out of that. Oh, wait, I'm not going to close out of everything on this tab because that would kill the stream. But I have a lot of news articles and Twitter open, so it might be chugging. Am I live? Oh, that's right. I have this screen open. That's why I mistook this graph down here for this graph for a second. Okay, now back to this. See if this works a little better. Okay, here we go. Perfect. Now it's finally working. Okay. So let's start with one of the unfortunate bombing little kids equals money. That's a great... See, that'll get you a manager position within the DNC. So let's start with a topic that it breaks my heart to be such a big deal, and that is the fact that Republicans are aggressively anti-trans and gay. They'll of course claim to not be. They'll be like, "Oh no, we're progressive. We're of the 21st century." And then we have gay people hosting these news shows funded by oil billionaires. We're hip. Republicans are so aggressively anti-trans, particularly anti-trans kids, because, of course, if you want to stop trans people from existing other than just outright murdering them, you make it harder for kids to hear about the concept of transness, understand that it might be a thing that would soothe their existential woes. And you, of course, push the ability to transition late into their adulthood to the point that it becomes a super big issue. It becomes super difficult to go through a second puberty and is emotionally a toil. So, of course, you cut all that off. You limit the number of trans people without having to just murder them. But on the flip side, can it be said that Democrats are in any way meaningfully pro-trans? That's a genuine question. Have they pushed any transgender protection bills? Let me Google on my phone, because Democrat pro-trans bills. Here are some great polls, by the way. Just as I'm looking on my phone, by the way, there are some lovely polls about the fact that this position is extremely unpopular even among Republicans. But of course, what doesn't matter is being popular. What matters is turning out your base in the midterms when turnout is low for your opponents. And this type of thing is exactly how you get shitty evangelicals out to vote en masse. But from everything I've seen, but as it turns out, on a federal level, I can't find any meaningfully pro-trans legislation. And of course, they would then go on to say, oh, the Senate gets in the way. We want to pass all these bills. But there's plenty that can be done. There's plenty of executive actions and ways that you can try to make change happen, even if you don't have the Senate. You know, Trump did plenty of stuff, even with only having 51 or 53 senators any given year. So I think it is safe to say the Democrats are not anti-trans. And that's about as far as it goes. Sure, some of these laws are being challenged in court, and that's important. But as far as what kind of campaign promises you make and what kind of bills you push for, I can't find anything that is meaningfully pro-trans. Please don't start a new one. Fuck you. Go away. Let's move on to healthcare. Republicans are pro what's the word I'm looking for? Free market isn't quite it. That sounds too nice. I also just realized this sentence could be read as aggressively anti-trans and the parentheses implying and aggressively gay, which, you know, that's sums up a lot of TERFs out there. See, market-driven, I'm trying to think of more loaded language than market-driven. let's move on to healthcare. Republicans are firmly pro-market-driven care. Which is funny considering that the Affordable Care Act, went a lot of ways, which is funny considering that the Affordable Care Act it bends over backwards to preserve the free market system. Certainly it brought in more people into Medicare and Medicaid, but it did its darndest to preserve the ability and this is for its own video to describe just why the market inelasticity of healthcare is such a problem for the average American. But they want to deregulate it so that insulin, instead of only going up 1,200% since my birth year, can go up 2,000% since my birth year. That's their dream world, of course. Hey, Mr. Yog Shoggoth. Mr. Yog Shoggoth. Thanks for tuning in. By chance, did you come from Thought Slime? That would be my first conclusion as to where somebody who just found me and cited the General Strike video as from. I'm glad you liked it, by the way. Happy to have you around. That's one of the videos I've been most proud of in a while. After making the Electoral College one, I kind of got into a habit of mixing in video essays with more reaction style content, and it was not, that one felt like a really nice return to researched video essay form. You sure did. Happy to have you. Thoughts? God, I mean, I have yet to see a more generally nice group of people on fandom on the left than people that come from Thought Slime. There are other creators who I also like who have much more toxic fan bases, so I appreciate that. Slime is such a nice group of folks to share the love around with. So now we have to ask, what are Democrats doing on healthcare? Well, Joe Biden did just sign an executive order that brings more people under ACA coverage. And they did just pass a bill through the House to lower copays for insulin, not for all prescription drugs, not as it was pre-like 1996, all medicine made with the benefit of public funding. It is just specifically insulin copays are capped a little bit. So that brings up a good question. What could we meaningfully say Democrats are in favor of when it comes to health care? See, because of course I read a lot of their decisions here as bending over backwards to preserve a employer-based private healthcare system. But of course they are taking tiny little steps away from that, so I'm sure plenty of people would say that it's actually stepping toward horrific communism of the healthcare marketplace. Let's say Democrats are pro-market care with a heart. They're all for they're all for the price of insulin to rise. They're all for companies charging 1,200% more for insulin in the year 2020 than 1996. But they just want the copay to be a little less. So the people producing the insulin can still get 1,200% more than they did 25 years ago. It's just that insurance will cover a little bit more of it this time. God forbid we make it so that insulin just not be 1,200% more. Because what about the people who don't have insurance? You know, what are they supposed to do if they have bad copays? So I think it's fair to say they're pro-market care and just trying to make it a little bit nicer around the edges. Whereas you have people like Matt Gaetz out there saying that people who need insulin a lot should just eat healthier. You know, that represents part of the pitch on this side of the aisle. They're like, no, we hear you. Insulin's really difficult. You will have to pay slightly less if you elect us. All right, give me another topic. I'm trying to think of what to talk about next. What are some other things going on? Oh, green energy. That's a topic. Ooh, crime's another good one. Maybe I'll do that one next. So what's a way to sum up Republicans and green energy? Are they fighting it? I'll say that they're agitating against green energy. Because there are some cases, like the fact that Texas has a decent amount of green energy in their electricity grid, but there is a lot of agitation against, like, oh, as if oil barons aren't also corrupt. They'll point to, like, oh, look at Nancy Pelosi buying Tesla stock before they, you know, greenlit subsidies, and they'll just kind of vaguely gesture to some of the corruption there, or they'll point to, like, oh no, this pipeline that's going through native land, there would be some jobs there. Like, there's a lot of agitation against green energy through this really faux populist lens, and this idea that, like, we're trying to preserve these hardworking jobs. Which, of course, if the owners of those jobs could ship them overseas, you know they would in a heartbeat. And this is one where I don't necessarily think it's fair to say they are not for green energy. They are just for a little bit of green. A little bit, but not too much, for a little green energy. Because even though in, like, Biden's infrastructure bill, there's some money for, like, electric car infrastructure, some subsidies for electric car manufacturing, there's government money being put into alternatives for lithium batteries, that sort of thing. You can tell in the negotiation process that a lot of this stuff is what gets left on the cutting room floor, not just because of Joe Manchin, though he certainly is a key voice in those spending bills, but in having to sometimes be bipartisan with budgets, or at least have to. They could avoid that, but people involved want to make it bipartisan for the sake of. Because of the agitation against green energy, a lot of it gets left on the cutting room floor. And it should be noted, the green energy that they are in favor of is a very individualized and liberalized version of it, where it's not so much about infrastructure like public transportation that's green. A lot of it is just make sure everyone has a Tesla instead of a Ford, or a Ford electric vehicle instead of a Ford gas-guzzling vehicle. Sorry, Mr. Yog Shagath. That was the first hour was talking about. And that makes sense. Oh, you're an organizer. Yeah, that makes sense why that would be what draws you to this stream. But yeah, the first hour I kind of looked at how Starbucks is doing, which will be a video up next week. So be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and check out, probably next Thursday, I'll drop a video talking about, edited down what I just talked about in Starbucks. Or I guess you could rewind this stream. You can do that when it's live, right? Yeah, rewind like 45 minutes or something like that. Oh, don't give me that. Fuck you. That wasn't to you, Mr. Yog Shagath. That was to Photoshop being weird. Next, speaking of the segment that I did just before this, unions and organized labor. Republicans are either against unions or for unions only if they're anti-woke. There's a video I made probably about a year ago now of a statement Marco Rubio made about Bessemer, Alabama. There's a video I made about a year ago now about Marco Rubio discussing the Amazon facility in Bessemer, Alabama that was trying to unionize. And he had this really weird statement where he's like, I'm for the union organizing because Amazon is getting it's becoming a socialist wing of the radical Castro Maoist left, woke left. Which is just such a weird position to like try to thread this needle of feigning interest in the working class having a say in anything. But you can't really commit to that too hard because you'd scare your donors. So you have to make it about how actually unions are a means of enforcing conservative values on the country. So I think it's fair to say Republicans either actively pass legislation or appoint people who are actively anti-union, or they'll voice vague support for the idea of unions as it pertains to the culture war, of course. And of course, if they ever got in, and of course, when they find themselves in the right amount of power, they'll push for, like right-to-work legislation and shit like that. This is actually one where Biden has done better than I would have thought on this front. Democrats have shown a decent pro-union stance during the Biden presidency, but not so much that they'll do much about it. because this gets into sort of my overall issue with Democrats at a federal level, is the idea that they'll voice vague support for, like, oh, well, let's lower the cost of insulin, or oh, let's have the PRO Act so people can unionize a little easier. But there's no effort, there's no political willpower put behind pushing for those. It's just kind of like, and it is important that, you know, Biden will draw attention to, like, oh, Amazon unionized. And that vocal support for unionization is a welcomed return to form, but it is not followed by any meaningful, like, legislative push. So I can't really give them too much credit for tweeting out unions are all right, but not doing anything to ensure that unions can exist. Don't. You keep doing this to me. Stop it, Photoshop. Yeah, that was one of the more baller things Biden has said as president, was when he said, Amazon... fuck, what was his quote? Let me look that up, actually. Because it was baller. Oh yeah, Biden said, Amazon, here we come. And then editing Piley throw in a clip of the bozo guy smoking a stogie. That's the type of thing where I say, like, that is a welcomed return to form, you know, after the harsh anti-union history of the Clinton administration and the from the little bit I can tell, indifference of the Obama administration. It's nice to see that Biden is leaning into that, but it is, to use a conservative's favorite word here, it is very virtue signally. It is not met with much substance. Now to get to a topic that Josh brought up a few minutes ago. Policing, or just, you know, cops in general. Republicans are firmly for making sure cops stay the third largest military. And I may have misspelled military there. That's okay. Because, yeah, if you didn't know, the largest military in terms of dollars is the United States. The second largest military is China by a wide margin, by the way. It's like $780 billion for us, $250 billion for them. And then the third largest military is domestic U.S. cops. So Republicans are all for even further funding for military, more riot gear, more tanks, more no-knock raids, that sort of thing. And there is a clear... And I guess this part of the conversation is where we get into one of the more, I think, unique divisions between the party. Where with a lot of these, the difference between, like, being an AOC or a Biden on being pro-trans is just kind of your support is whether or not you just tweet out support or try to do something in a legislative sense. But when it comes to cops, there is a clear push from leadership to fund the police. Whereas on the other side of the aisle, you have the opposite, where there's pushes, you know, in like Denver, I think it's Denver, or maybe it was Boulder City, a really successful push to have specialized healthcare workers respond to certain types of calls rather than cops who sometimes, you know, get a little antsy, and there have been unfortunate violent outcomes from those. A program that is so successful, by the way, they're expanding it like tenfold. But there is a unique difference between trying to be actively pro-funding the police and trying to redistribute the tax dollars such that we can service human need instead of just jailing everybody all the time. Hello, Pumped Aaron. Thanks for tuning in. So I actually really don't know what to put for this one. Solidarity, comrades, indeed. So here we go. Therefore, fund the police, but with a heart. I think that sums up kind of the Joe Biden side of the party. Is, in form to the crime bill he wrote in 94, which, did a lot to expand federal prisons. There's just little things about like, oh, well, let's put like $30 million of fraction of the money spent on increasing the federal prison budget. Let's spend like 25, 30 million for some like after school sports programs, That's sort of the moderate Democrat way of funding the police with a smile, Okay, now we're getting to the point where the thing I use to block the mic sound a little bit is getting in the way of my screen. Oh, that works. I think. Yeah, that works. Perfect. Okay, what are some other topics? We brought up housing is there. That's a thing that could be discussed. I'm trying to think of like, what are the big military, what are the big topics of our day, Oh my God, something I didn't notice until today's streaming. I think it was like Denims or something tweeted the other day, which by the way, she's fun. Go follow her on Twitter and Twitch and YouTube. She tweeted looking for a chair, and she mentioned so her back doesn't hurt, and it's probably much worse for people who stream long amounts of time. But I'm just sitting up straight, and I'm like, oh, I can feel it in my back all of a sudden. I'm like, oh, there is this weird pain from sitting in this rigid position to stay within the camera boundaries. See, we covered trans people, healthcare, green energy, unions, cops. Oh, let's talk about CRT. Republicans are firmly pro for a one-sided nationalist history. If you find the right conservative talking openly, they'll talk about how, like, America cannot exist if we ask the sort of questions that, like, CRT, which is their buzzword, asks. But this is a really funny example of where, like, there really isn't a similar countervailing force over here. There's not, like, pro-CRT legislation because it's not it doesn't stem from a top-down legislative effort. It's just kind of people going to school that bring this sort of understanding that they got from classes to the classroom. Like, I can't think of a bit like the two states I've bounced between as of late, Washington, like the states in my, like the blue states in my area, there's no like, you must teach CRT in the schools because it's not, it's not top down like it is for Republicans. There's not this weird push to force engendering a very nationalistic history. So I don't even know what to put here. Non-complete. Or maybe ambivalent to how history is taught. I'm upset at how long it's taken me to get here because I was really excited to go over, speaking of housing, how shitty Eric Adams has been as a mayor. But that's a video that can really be whenever, because I think New York mayors being how New York mayors be will be an eternal storyline. See, and I'm trying to think. I was like, public schooling? I can't really think of any, like, bills to support public schooling for Democrats as opposed to just tear down public schooling from Republicans. What are some other topics, folks? I'm trying to think. What are some now I'm just trying to think Supreme Court shit. Oh, God, there we go. That's one. That's a good one. Aggressively. Yeah, that's how you spell aggressively. Anti-abortion. So aggressive, in fact, they're trying to limit your ability to get an abortion before you would even know you're pregnant in some cases. And once again, as is quickly becoming the trend, it's almost like I had an overall point to making this segment. They are pro-choice in theory, not practice. I mean, really all that needs to be said about Democrats and their stance on doing anything about abortion. Obama had 60 senators and the House. He could have passed abortion legislation if they gave a shit. They didn't. And as soon as you have Nancy Pelosi, like, signaling support for these bills when some of the aggressively anti-abortion stuff came out, and of course she'll virtue signal with the bill, which sounds like a weird thing to say, but that's just the fucking Senate, folks. You can't. Bills pushing for meaningfully good things have to be virtue signaling, because you will never convince 10 Republicans to vote for that. Oh, net neutrality. I haven't heard. I feel like an old person. I haven't heard the phrase net neutrality in a while. God. Back in my day, we would talk about net neutrality around the lunch table. Okay, I've got room for about one more topic on my Photoshop document, and I refuse to edit this. And I refuse to do anything to make this much longer. So let's end on one good topic. I realize I keep My camera's up here. I keep, because there's text on screen, looking here, and that's probably not great for viewer engagement. That is an interesting thing to talk about, Josh. The partisan. It's funny because I just watched a Majority Report video about Democrats and West Wing, and this sort of like idolization of bipartisanship as a good thing on its own, rather than just a thing that you kind of have to begrudgingly deal with. And that is kind of a thing they try to run on. There is an attempt, you know, like Joe Biden's campaign, clearly with endorsements from like the ex-governor of Ohio and shit, or Colin Powell. There was a clear desire to signal bipartisanship in a way that is not seen on the other side. I just don't quite know if that, in the same way that running on healthcare bills, I don't know if that's quite the same. That's a good question. That might be the one to end on. I'm giving myself a minute to think if there's like one more sort of voting topic. Student debt's interesting. That's another one where the answer is just kind of, they voice vague support but don't. Oh, fucking voting rights. Maybe that's the one to end on. Yeah, voting rights. So let's wrap up by talking about voting rights. Republicans are for making voting a gosh darn lot harder. They would, of course, say that when you make it harder, it makes it more honest. You know, you avoid corruption more. But in practice, it means by putting barriers in the way of voting, some people will either get to the voting booth and then just kind of give up, or the just general disassociation with the act of being involved in their civic duty to vote. And this is one where at a state level, Democrats are better. You know, they're passing legislation to make voting easier, to make access to voting easier, which is a little bit different than some of the other topics we've discussed so far. But at a federal level, and again, falling in line with everything I've said so far, they want voting to, by magic, be accessible. They want somebody else to do something about the fact that you should be able to vote without having to go through all these hoops. They don't want to be the ones to do that. They don't want to be the ones to try to force the issue in any sort of meaningful way, to play hardball or anything like that. They just want it to magically happen. So yeah, in summary, as we take a look at these well-written, well-defined, robust lists, in my humble opinion, a lot of this stuff is really not good. That is not to say they don't find ways to try to manufacture consent around these ideas that maybe sound good in a sense. But I think these are all pretty not good. Legislation to make it that trans people can't transition as kids and then have a harder... Legislation that makes it more difficult for... Legislation that makes it so that teachers can't talk about the act of being gay and you actively make there be less gay people. Not great. Agitating against green energy in a place where they just released... The IPCC just released a report the other day that we... are at like the final, we have the final few years to do something about it. So it's not good to agitate against that. Actively against unions, not cool. Aggressively anti-abortion, not cool, dude. So I am not making this video to say that there's any, like, I don't want to fall into the Jimmy Dore or like Breaking Point's trap of talking about Democrats bad so much to the point that my audience thinks Democrats are more elitist or less favorable than Republicans. I want to make very clear, this agenda is one that scares me, you know, specifically a lot of the anti-trans bills scares me. As somebody, you know, I'm a theater person. I'm around a lot of non-binary, trans, and gay people. Like, this matters on a very human level to a lot of people that I love. And it's quite frankly, to get, you know, a little personal for a moment, this shit scares me. Oh, that's a shame to hear, Pumped Aaron. Even though it's not a perfect solution, you know, letting people camp in the woods or a park. Like, I'm in an area where they do that. And, you know, it's the best you can hope for in an austerity society. But on the flip side, when we sit and talk about, like, what sort of things are meant to drive me out to the polls? Like, I live in a new state now. I need to register to vote if I want to vote for anybody. What on this ballot is meant to make me go out and vote for local Democrats in my area? Like, what here is supposed to spark me, to motivate me to go out and vote for Democrats? And I can't really find anything other than just not being this. And that can be motivating. Like, I don't want anti-trans bills in my state. That's a motivating factor. I don't want green energy to be completely obliterated in the final years. I don't want green energy to be meaningfully obliterated in the last few years we have to do anything. So that can be motivating, but as somebody who just kind of has generally stopped caring because of how fundamentally things haven't changed the last year and some change, it's hard to look at this platform here and feel any encouragement or feel any excitement to go, you know, vote for people. And you know, though I don't think even if they were a little bit better about these things, that would be the end-all be-all. Like, again, as I said in the last segment I recorded before recording this segment, unions aren't the end-all be-all. I wish we were pushing for worker co-ops or like bigger public sector unions and public ownership of things. So they don't even like have to match my ideal to get me out to vote. I just want them to be actively pushing, using their power for things. Because that's the big issue is, you know, like when Republicans are in power, the Trump did, I forget, there was some shady, when Trump was in power, he would use a variety of methods to try to get things done. Either he would, you know, try to divert funding from different departments in a way that was legally a little sketchy, to fund his wall before it was passed by Congress, or he would play hardball with the House of Representatives to try to get a deal to fund his border wall. He signed a bunch of sweeping executive actions to, like, limit immigration and stuff like that. But there seems to be a weird lack of a desire to do the same thing on the other side. There is instead either a fetishization of bipartisanship. Well, oh no, we don't need to push for your voting bill. I, Joe Manchin, can get Republicans on the table for my highly compromised voting bill, and then 0 Republicans vote on his highly compromised voting bill. Or when you push them and when you press a Democrat and say, hey, do better, they'll just say, well, you should vote for more of us so we can have the margins we need. Which, again, is not a very motivating statement. So, in summary, I don't really feel much of a means. So yeah, as avid viewer Mr. Yog Shagath, hope I'm saying that right, pointed out, fear can be a strong motivator, but it's not the ideal way to elect a politician. So to answer the question, why vote blue? I just really wish my answer were something different, but I think my answer is there isn't a good reason. You know, when I started saying that sentence, I thought that would be a nicer conclusion to end on. Yeah, that's a good point, and that's something we covered in the first segment about Starbucks, is that there are some people in the NLRB who are like actually filing complaints and charging Starbucks for like firing union activists, you know, and that's rare. You don't usually see that. The fact that Bessemer, Alabama got a second election because of Amazon fucking with the first one is rare. That's new. That's good. But that's one of those things where it's like, that's just one of those frustrating tinkering around the edges issues of this government, is just that it's like, I just wish it was easier to pass the PRO Act. Is that too much to ask? And that's the one bill that Joe Manchin is in favor of. The one thing we get that crotchety oil baron motherfucker to agree on. And we still can't get it through. So in summary, I don't think there is a meaningfully good reason to vote blue. So in summary, to answer the question, why vote blue, I think I would give an incomplete. They have not provided me as a generally like-minded voter. They have not given me a reason to elect them, just point blank. And this isn't just like virtue signaling. I actively mean it when I say, who knows if I'll register to vote and actually vote in these upcoming midterms. I easily could not because of how lackluster this platform is. So if they want people like me to show up to vote, if they want a turnout so they don't just get absolutely washed in the midterms, they need to start not just virtue signaling for some of these things. They need to start like putting their energy behind having an actively good platform, trying to make people's lives actively better. And it doesn't even have to be mine. Like, again, if they were aggressively pro-trans, that would be a huge step toward getting my vote because, you know, I have solidarity with homies that aren't me. You know, I want my trans homies to have as good a life as is possible with, you know, the kinds of reactionary backlash they get. Like, I would consider going out to vote even just to support, you know, pro-trans bills, but they can't even really give me anything. So, I've kind of talked myself in circles here at the end. That'll be it for the video today, folks. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to let me know down below if there's any other topics that you feel Democrats aren't doing really good at. If there's anything you think I missed that they're doing a good job about. Let me know at a state level how folks are doing, because that is really up in the air state to state as to what the parties are pushing for in a good way or in a bad way. But with that, let's turn it on over to the pre-recorded outro. Oh, God. I don't know how streamers do it, man. I'm starting every time, because I only stream once every couple weeks. Every time I stream, I quickly realize when you see folks like every streamer that I like hear talk or hear interviews with talks about just kind of having like cursed streamer brain. And I could see how if you had to do this for like 4 to 8 hours a day, every day for your job, my brain would just be poisoned and weird, and it would hurty. My brain would hurty a lot. And that sucks, but that's just how it be. Oh, we had somebody new join the Discord. That's fun. Gonna give them a wave real quick. Yeah, folks, by the way, in the chat, there should be the pinned link, should be to the Discord. So be sure to join us on Discord if you haven't already. I've been, with rehearsals ramping up, I've been very bad about committing to movie nights, but I'm trying to schedule one this weekend. We're going to sit at some point over this weekend and watch Sorry to Bother You, or at least sometime in the next few days, which I am so excited about. I haven't seen that movie in a few years, and when I saw it, I was still a little like Bernie bro, little baby. Which I don't mean to say the, like, derisive, I don't know, come-town podcaster Bernie bro. I mean, I was very much like, yeah, affirmative action and 3% more corporate tax rate. Yay! Like, I was that kind of liberal. But now I am way further to the left than I was when I saw the movie in, like, 2018 or 2019. So I'm excited to watch it again. And thank you, Mr. Yog Shagath, for joining the Discord. You'll be on that list of folks able to tune in and watch Sorry to Bother You with us. Which is so funny. If I was on Twitch, that could be a thing I just did. I could just watch movies for my job. But yeah, it has to be through Discord just because it's no longer, like a public thing. It's all of a sudden like, oh, it's just, for all they know, it's just, a group of friends in a community. So yeah, thank you for tuning in, everybody. I should probably have moved this to full screen a little sooner. Thank you so much to everybody for tuning in. This was a lot of fun. I'm glad I was able to get through those 2 segments. Sometimes I struggle to get through the segments that I set out to do. But it was nice. In this last one especially, this was a nice... it was the kind of back and forth I was looking for, where we were discussing different points, offering up suggestions, that sort of thing. So thank you for tuning in, and thank you for chatting. It made this segment go by a lot smoother. But yeah, with that, I can feel and hear my stomach rumbling. This was a great stream, folks. I'm going to try to do another one of these soon. I'm not going to try to commit to any sort of date, because then I'll commit wrong and then feel like an asshole for not being true to you folks. But expect more streams in the future. This one was fun, and I love doing segments like these. So thank you so much. Hope you have a wonderful, wonderful it's Friday, right? Yeah, Friday. I can see there's a new comment. Oh, that's right. Never mind. The video up here is way behind. Trip me up. But yeah, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Oh, be sure to, reminder again, be sure to watch Thought Slime's video on Gary V. Be sure to watch all of my videos, actually. You can watch any number of them that you'd like on a loop, if you so choose. But yeah, have a wonderful weekend, everybody. Is it... I clicked end stream. Is there... Oh, it's popped up a notification. And...